To recondition the cylinder head, and the first thing we do is take the valves out, but before that we have to take an impact socket and hit the top of the valve spring retainers so the keepers inside there are become dislodged. They stick and you would not be able to operate the valve spring tool. Remember to wear eye protection when you're doing this, because one of the keepers could come out and be ejected by the valve spring itself. We've chosen a scissor type conventional valve spring tool. Works well on earlier cylinder heads like this one. And you can see the bottom is at the valve head. The top is to push down on the valve spring, and you can see the keepers in there. They're not too apparent, but they're right next to the end of the valve stem. So we want to compress that spring, and making sure that the bottom of the valve spring compressor is squarely on the valve head. And to get a better view of the keepers, you can see the very top of the valve retainer, and you can see the keepers in there. And the next picture, of course, is the keepers that are out. They're very easy to lose, so be careful that you put them in a container so they can be put away for reassembly. Be organized as you take all the valves out, and when you finally get the cylinder head completely disassembled, make sure that there's a suitable method of keeping the valve springs and the valves in an orderly fashion for reassembly. You don't want to lose one keeper because they're very hard to replace and you have to phone and order one and whatnot. So you make sure you keep them all safe. It's time to clean up the cylinder head, and you can use a drill with a wire wheel on the end, but be careful because you just want to use the wire brushes of the drill. And some drills have a keyed area that can damage the sealing area of the machined area of the surface head. We want to have a good look at the valve. We're looking at the valve margin on this one, and we're looking for any obvious wear on the valve stem. Now the valve margin is very important because we're going to grind this valve and it's going to make the margin a little bit thinner. And the margin has to be thick enough that it's strong and can stand the heat. You can see this one here is very, very healthy and should give no problem. After cleaning, we have a close look at in between the valve seats. That's the area where the heads crack quite often, and you have to carefully look at this area. And of course, if it's cracked, then between the two valve seats, then the cylinder head would have to be replaced. It's no use investing in a cylinder head without doing these checks first. Now we're having another look at this margin, and we know this valve's good, so we're going to check it out further. So we've got our vernier micrometer out, and we measure the valve stem at the top where it hasn't touched, been worn by the guide, and then we measure it all the way down, and we're looking at the middle and looking for signs of wear. This one has very minimal wear, if any at all. After the valve's been thoroughly checked, have a good look at the end of the valve stem. That's where the rocker arm contacts it. And we can see this one's got a little bit of roughness to it. But our valve grind machine has an attachment to machine that flat again, and we'll do that when we grind the valves. One of the parts that wear readily in a cylinder head is the valve guides. And the valve guide, as you can see here in this diagram, the valve guide is the yellow portion, and the valve stem is blue and the cylinder head gray. And between the yellow and the blue is clearance, and there should be, of course, enough clearance so the valve can move up and down as it opens and closes. But excessive wear causes oil burning, because manifold vacuum, if it's the intake valve, will cause a suction of oil down the guide clearance. These can be readily repaired, either if it's excessive by sending the cylinder head out to the machine shop and they can put a new guide in, Or if it's just a little bit, we have a knurling process that we do at the shop and take up that clearance. The valve guide can be easily checked with the valve and a dial indicator, and you rock the valve back and forth when it's down very low to the cylinder head seat, and in the same direction that the rocker arm would push it, and it shouldn't be any more than 1.5 to 2 thousandths. If it's 4 thousandths of an inch on the dial indicator, we can knurl that. If it's over that, we're probably looking at having a new guide installed. The cylinder head should be checked for warpage. You do a crisscross warpage check and a parallel warpage check, and there shouldn't be more than 1.5 thou to 1 thou space or warpage. And once that's all been done, the first things we have to look at repairing, and this will be in another presentation, is the valve guide. That's the first thing. It has to be either replaced or knurled, so we can grind the seats with a concentric and proper valve guide, because that's what we center our tools on. So this head looks in very good shape, as the rest of the engine has. So thank you for your